40 minutes per session. And what we're going to do is, if we cut out and we are still in the process of answering, taking questions and answering, we are going to we're going to go out and then come straight back in. So you're just going to use the same link that was sent earlier to come back into the meeting. Did you raise your hand, Julie?
No.
Okay, sure.
I'm good.
And then we'll just come straight back in so that we can continue with the question and answer session. We want to be done with the meeting by 12 o'clock, preferably. What I'm going to ask everyone to do before we start is just to kindly mute yourselves for now, and then you can unmute as you answer a question. The other thing I would like to ask you to do, if at all possible, is if you look at the bottom of your screens, there's an option to chat. If you could preferably post your questions in the chat session, in the chat section of the Zoom meeting. And once we get to the question and answer session, we'll just take each of those questions that you've posted. So you can start posting as Julie is doing her presentation. If there are questions that we are not able to answer fully within the session, we're going to give you our email addresses, and then we would like you to email us those questions. Or we're also going to take, so you'd have to just put your email address as well. We're going to take those questions and respond to some of them afterwards, because we're not sure how many questions are going to come through in the session. And if there are more than what we can handle within this 1 hour, we'll be able to respond to those later on. What we will do is we will make this video available on our online platforms, on our email, and on our social media platforms, and on our website. So you will be able to go back and look at these questions, but obviously there's also the option of viewing the video at a later stage. So with that, I'm just trying to share another screen quickly, and I just want to see if I can find it here. It doesn't seem to be coming up. So I just want to see if I can find the files here, and then we have another screen that we would like to share. Okay, I don't know why this is not coming up, Julie. Let me just save it quickly on my desktop, and then we can share it. This is our first session. You know, we're going to improve, hopefully, as we go along. Sorry, Norma, I'm in the session. Do you have a question?
No, you're saying I just sent you another one. Sorry, now one.
Okay, you're on live. It's fine, Norma. We've started the session now. If people hadn't sent their email addresses earlier, we started now. So we'll just watch the video later.
Yeah, that's the end. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just saving this quickly, and then we can share it. If you can just bear with me just 1 second. Okay. Okay, Julie, is your screen coming up yet?
Not yet.
Okay, just wait for it a second, maybe. Okay, is it on now?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
it is.
fantastic.
You can try and zoom a little bit.
Sorry?
You can try and zoom a little bit.
Okay, sure.
If you can.
Yes, let me try to do that. Is that better?
Could I take, yes, it's better. Can I take this opportunity to ask everyone to mute their mics, because there's a background echo? Okay, can I start?
Yes, Julie, please, you can start. So over to Julie, everyone.
Good morning once more, everyone. My name is Julie Dipofa.
Julie?
Yes.
Julie?
Yeah, Bo.
Hi, it's Tula. Can we ask Ivy? She's playing TV in the background. She's the one that's not muted.
Yeah.
Much better now. Thank you. Okay, good morning once more. My name is Julie Dipufa. As I was saying, I'm the Arts Development Manager at the National Arts Council. I'm here to present the NAC assessment criteria, the methodology that we'll be using, as well as the COVID-19 compliance. The assessment criteria has been repackaged differently. It's not necessarily very new. It's just been repackaged in accordance with the new strategy that we have at the NAC. Can you move to the second slide, please? So with the current reality that we're facing ourselves, the COVID-19 pandemic, we obviously had to do some alterations to the criteria itself and the method of assessment, because we needed to be, in line with the enhanced strategy, as I've already mentioned, and that's for 2020-2025. So this document has gone through several iterations and discussions, as well as consultations within the NAC, with the arts development officers who are responsible for processing applications, with the various managers, with the panel of chairpersons, which is the panel of advisory panel chairpersons within the NAC board, including the NAC panel members, advisory panel members, who actually review the applications and make recommendations to council for approval or not approval. So in addition, we further decided to ensure that we outline the COVID-19 guidelines for project funding, because we realize that if a project is not COVID compliant, it may not carry through. So it won't make sense at all to be funding the project itself. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm not too sure. Okay, that's better, that's better. We have actually repackaged the criteria according to the 4 quadrants in our strategy. These are program impact, profiling, processes, as well as partnerships. I'll outline each and every one of them later on during my presentation. The first quadrant is program impact. We obviously would love to see that when we fund, there is an impact that is happening on the ground. The first sub-criteria that we have allocated under program impact is the extent to which a project is interactive, is innovative, approaches diverse group, diverse communities, and obviously has artistic merit. We exist because we want to develop and promote the arts, and we exist because we want to showcase the talent, the professionalism that we have in the arts sector. So artistic merit is very important. And to elaborate on that, we would love to see new innovative works, particularly being presented on digital platforms where possible, but we do understand that there are some people who work on their own, for instance, script writers. So they would, if you're writing your manuscript, you wouldn't obviously need to present it on a digital platform. You're working alone at home, and obviously you're COVID compliant. So we'd like people to showcase collaboration, doing the project in collaboration with other people. Hence the issue of diversity is quite important as well. And at least adhere to 2 of the 5 NAC values. The values of our funding really looks at the outcomes of funding. In terms of impact, we're looking to have economic impact. That's the economic value. We're also looking at projects that have educational value, social value, therapeutic value, creative value, environmental value, and so forth. So just to give an example. So we like to see projects that are actually going to make an impact in 2 or more of those values or funding outcomes, as you may want to call them. We also like to see, in the current reality that we find ourselves in, we really would like to see projects that reimagine audiences, because we're not going to have traditional audiences in many respects, especially if one is going to be having performances, concerts, and so forth. So the advantage now is that with the COVID, if you're reimagining your audience and you're gonna have audiences that are beyond your traditional audiences, so it's far-reaching audience development as well. So this is quite important, especially if the work is created to be consumed through digital platforms. The next important sub-criteria that we have under project impact is obviously the ability to transform the sector. We want the sector to change. We want positive outcomes through the NAC funding, hence the transformation of the sector through NAC values that I've mentioned earlier. We would like to see work that is non-discriminatory. We want to see work that grants opportunities and access to other groups, other people. And we also would love to see and concentrate more on giving preference to projects that are going to benefit people outside of the privileged provinces and the overfunded metros. We know that, unfortunately, probably through migration or so, and access to information, access to resources, we have seen that the 3 metropolitan provinces, namely Gauteng, Western Cape and KwaZulu-Natal, have traditionally consumed the larger portion of the slice of the NAC funding. Now, in terms of transformation, would love to see the underfunded provinces, the 6 marginalized provinces, also benefiting a lot. Council goes at length to ensure that there is some equitable distribution of funding, because you can't transform the sector if other areas still continue to be marginalized. The next subsector, which is a lasting impact or the legacy, I like this one because one would love to see the legacy of the project that you're doing, the sustainability of the program that you're doing on the ground. We want to see what is it leaving behind? Is it a touch and go? Does it have a multiplier effect? From that program, do we have other programs mushrooming out of it and benefiting more people? So it is quite important that your project has an element of strengthening capacity building, where you're gonna be working with other people and transferring skills and knowledge through the project that you're doing. Obviously, redress and transformation, it's number one on our agenda, ensuring that you work with marginalized groups, women, youth, people living with disabilities, and so forth. So it is important that these other diverse groups are also included or are showcased and benefit from the project itself. Yeah, the project itself can showcase environmental awareness. As an example, should have a multiplier effect. And as I've mentioned, sustainability of art program offered. We don't want to see projects that just die down, but they must have a legacy, of course, and continuation and have a life beyond what it is presenting now. Next slide, please. Okay, the next quadrant that is very important, especially in advocating the work of the arts, in advocating for the development and promotion of the arts, is profiling. If you're advocating or you're showcasing that the work needs to be promoted, obviously profiling then becomes very important, because that's a way or a message of showcasing or communicating the project that you're doing. The first sub-criterion is global recognition. This actually speaks to the work being recognized beyond the locale of where the project is actually happening, locally, globally, provincially, regionally, and so forth. So we know that artists are change makers, and as such, their artistic work that is being produced or that is being presented has to entice or have impact even beyond local boundaries. So it's important that it is known. So through the communication about the project that is happening, then a project or one is able to profile the work of the NAC through the funded artistic work. We still have to work a lot on this, because some of the beneficiaries that we have doing fantastic work on the ground, they don't even showcase our logo to show that this work was supported by the NAC. A lot of them do, but I still think we need a little bit more work on that, so that they can communicate, and through their projects, other people who may not know of, never have heard about the NAC, are then able to know about the NAC and therefore potentially access the support that the NAC is able to offer. So on the other hand, it's also important, and I've seen a lot of improvement on our side as well, where the NAC's marketing department is very strong on campaigns, communicating on social media, informing about the NAC, about the people, about the NAC and the work that we're doing, because this is quite important. Beneficiaries are our partners. Prospective applicants are our important stakeholders. So we need to have a trust relationship between our stakeholders so that we can improve public perceptions of the NAC. The next sub-criterion is increased access to market. When a product is created, when content is created, it needs to reach the audience. It needs to be consumed. So it is important that through accessing the market, through performance platforms, through exhibition platforms, people are able to see the work, the audience is able to reach the work and enjoy the work that has been presented. So it's quite important now that when designing your application, especially when you're designing for it to be consumed, you need to be cognizant of how am I going to reach the audience. That's where digital platforms becomes quite crucial at this stage. So the last sub-criterion under the quadrant of profiling is obviously ability to change the view of the arts. That's the advocacy I was talking about. It obviously speaks to audience reach. Obviously recognizing the power of the arts. Art is not art for art's sake. It's quite a powerful medium to communicate social issues, to communicate about health issues. At the same time, it engenders the appreciation and enjoyment of the arts and actually even showcase the value of the arts that I've mentioned earlier. Next slide, please, Eugene. Partnerships, that's the third quadrant that we have. If you've gone through our application form, there is somewhere where we actually encourage or ask you if you have sourced funding elsewhere, because we realize that our funding is finite and therefore we may not be the only supporters of your project. We may not only be the ones that are gonna cover all your project costs. So it's quite important that when you're designing your applications, you're looking at other avenues, at other possible partnerships that can assist in bringing or implementing the project. So it is important that you source local and other partnerships. And these partnerships do not necessarily have to be physical money, physical finances, but in-kind support. Where somebody can give you a space for free, can source that, or somebody can come and donate their time, for instance, and offer capacity building on your behalf. So that's quite important that you also look at other avenues besides or beyond only finance resourcing. The next one is capacity to pay it forward. This actually looks at the capacity of your project to enhance or strengthen capacity building, share information, share skills, even if it's performance, even if you're not trying to have a formal training program, but if you're rehearsing with a group of artists, you obviously are mentoring them and coaching them along the way to become better actors, to become better singers, or better dancers, and so forth. So that capacity building element is quite important if you're gonna pay it forward to support other people or to grow other people. And in this case, there is that component of educational value and other possibilities that are possible and that can be done. Obviously, community support is another criterion. We like to see projects that have been conceived, with support of the community or conceived with other similar groups working in similar interest as yours, so that it shows that you're working and including other people. With that possibility, then you're able to reach broader audience. Community involvement and support is quite important because it is the community itself that is actually the consumers of your artistic product. Next, please. Processes, that's I think the last slide, I mentioned the 4 quadrants. So processes is one of them. The application form itself does ask about the history of your organization, the track record, or any past achievements, because in this area where we can be able to deduce or to decipher your artistic track record as well as your management track record, because we are dealing with public funding, and you just don't, you're looking for potential here. You just don't want to give funds to an individual or an organization that doesn't have a good track record or potential for a good track record to implement the funding, as well as technical or proficiency skills in managing the program itself. I know that particularly the capacity building panel, if somebody says they're going to be training or running workshops, they like to see the CVs of the facilitators in that way to determine if this cohort of people that will be facilitating the project do have the necessary skills to do the work. Hence, you will see that in our compliance list, we do require even CVs of people that are behind the project. This is quite important because the track record plays a crucial role here. We obviously look at budget and finance management. Applicants need to demonstrate the ability to work with and also implement budgets. We are very good, I think, with experience, particularly the panels that review applications, because they've been working in the field. They're able to see if a budget has been thumbsucked. So the budget cost needs to be properly researched and costed, and not be unreasonable or being exorbitant. We've seen people who ask for exorbitant amounts of money for a very small project. So sometimes you find the project itself being more than the budget for allocation in that city. So it's quite important that the budgets are sound and they are feasible and workable. I've also seen examples where people are really, really grossly under budget, and the panel will say, no, this is a fantastic project, but it can't be implemented in this budget. And there's been instances where the panel can increase the budget more than what a person has applied for, because the budget was not, properly conceived. The final sub-criterion there is feasibility and ability to comply. It's very important, as I've mentioned, when you're dealing with public funding, that in the first instance, you demonstrate your ability to comply with the application form. Implementing your project, your track record is quite important, your technical skills. Because beyond the application form itself, you're going to be managing money. So you need to be able, which is a section that we're going to do later on, particularly with beneficiaries, understand the contract, because a lot of people just sign a contract and and just submit to the NAC so that they can get the funding, but do not understand the provisions themselves. We're going to work at supporting beneficiaries on this as well in later sessions. So reporting is quite important, and reporting timelessly, because it actually even affects the money, the surplus that we hold. So we don't want to, at the end, to close off people's projects because they have not complied with the reporting timelines. We really want the money earmarked for their projects to be claimed and implemented correctly. Thanks, Eugene. And I think the next slide is going to talk about Corbett, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, sorry. The proposed changes to the methodology. Over time, we've been trying to...
Sorry, Julie. We are unable to mute Dingaan Chabalala, and his background noise is coming through quite a lot. I've muted everybody else except for Dingaan. Can we please ask him to mute himself? For some reason, I'm unable to mute from the side.
Okay.
So Dingaan, if you can hear us, please can you mute? If you cannot mute, we'll have to remove you. Hi, Dingaan. Okay, Julie, let's continue. Okay. If we continue to get back.
All right. Yes. I was saying that over the years we've been, trying to implement the scoring system, but we have never really been successful. The advantage now is that we have a grant management system, which is not only for people to make their applications to the NAC, but we are actually using it on a daily basis to manage the data and information regarding applications, applicants, as well as beneficiaries. So in this time around, we have implemented the scoring system where we're gonna be looking at, you know, a methodology of scoring from 1 to 5 in each and every quadrant or sub-criterion, if I can put it that way, where 1 is poor, 2 is fair, 3 is good, and 4 very good, and 5 excellent. And in this case, it actually sometimes even moves the, or removes, if I can put it that way rather, it removes the element of subjectivity in the review of applications, because the score in a way will speak for itself. Because the grants management system is also used for audit purposes as well as for appeals processes. So one, for instance, if one is auditing or if one wants to appeal, they're able to see how they were scored on each of the sub-criterion. It actually, the GMS itself, it totals automatically the scores and averages it, so that prior to the discussions or the meetings themselves, the score on each and every applicant can be showcased on how each and every member of that panel has scored the applicant. So this is quite a milestone for us to be able to implement this as we continue to live in the fourth industrial era and have information that is digital, that can be easily retrieved and available. Next slide, please. Okay, this is how it shows how one is going to be scored in each of the sub-criterion for each and every quadrant. Every one of them is out of 5. And the total will be 60, and the GMS will average it out of 100 as well. Next slide, please. Okay, my partner in crime, I think Lindy will take us from now on. I'm not too sure if she's available. Lindy?
Hi, Lindy, just unmute yourself. I can't find you on the list. There's quite a long list of participants.
I have unmuted myself.
Lovely.
Am I audible?
Yes, thanks, Lindy.
Thanks, Lindy.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to take you through the COVID-19 compliance in relation to, I think, to change that has to occur maybe. So the slide that is put in front talks to the comprehensive rules of engagement around COVID-19. Those are COVID-19 restrictions and protocols. So we do know that the Command Council has issued all the rules. So we are saying as the NAC, artists, when they're presenting work, they have to take into account this type of rules, which means that we are not going to be looking at supporting projects that are of a gathering that will involve more than 50 people. In the event that the project has to happen and there has to be some interaction, and a number of about 50 people should be involved, but they have to observe the social distancing, which is about 2 meters, which means that in the environment where the people, let's make an example. For an example, let's say you're doing a workshop and you want to bring people together and they're less than 50. You have to put them together in one room that will be disinfected, and you have to provide them with a mask. You have to provide them with the sanitizers. All of them have to provide have to observe the rules around social hygiene, basically. And you have to make sure that you keep a 2-meter distance between the people, and you provide them with a facility that is conducive. We've seen this in different platforms where the minister has spoken to say, in the event of, like, I'm making an example of the production houses, they've been allowed to go back, but the minister has set out strict measures to say, if you are to provide food, make sure that the food is cooked, and during the cooking of the food and the preparing of the food, it was prepared correctly, and then it's covered, and the utensils that are used are clean. So basically, we are the slides talk to say, you know what, whatever that we're going to be presenting, projects that we're going to be supporting, if they have to involve people, we shall observe the rules. And then the other rules that impacts that have been like is the ban on travel. Travel is not permitted internationally. So we see a lot of events like your festivals that happens abroad. So all of those have put their programs on hold and say we're going to do them in 2021. Then the challenge that the NAC will have to deal with is that, do we consider them now for 2021, or do we just allow people to revise their projects to say that might not be a possibility unless if it happens in 2021 and the COVID-19 disruptions have changed and the people can move from one country to the other, then those projects can happen. If they can happen through digital platforms, then they can happen through digital platforms. But all that we're asking our artists to observe that. In terms of our local festivals, like your Free State festivals, the National Arts festivals, we're quite aware that they're looking at new ways of doing things and adapting in a new format. So we ask that as you prepare your projects, make sure that you consider all these set of rules. And in the event that you already on the GMS system have put in an application that did not observe all this COVID-19 compliance, we ask you again to go back and go pull out your retract your application. We'll guide you at the back end and give the support to say how do you pull out the application, and then you can revise it and amend it accordingly. I am seeing questions coming up, which I will try and answer. My apologies, I just need a minute to just go through chats.
That's fine, Lindy. Lindy, also your okay. I'll stop sharing now.
I've got a question from the seminar, which is asking to say if the project will involve traveling from one province to another. We'll deal with the questions later.
No, that's fine, Lindy. You can continue. You can answer that question.
All right. All right. I have to go back to chats again. My apologies for that.
And then while you're looking, Lindy, I just note that there are a few questions. I'll just go through them and just ask the question so that everyone can hear the question. And
please
then
so that I can answer.
Yes. Okay, but you can answer the one that you already started answering, Lindy, and then I'll just go through the rest.
Okay, my apologies. I don't see the question. I was trying to read and answer it. It was talking about traveling between provinces and where three people are involved. Am I right?
That's correct, yes. So you can answer that one, Lindy.
Okay. If you were to basically, you have to look at the overarching rules to say, in terms of travel, what does the transport sector say? They've said that people cannot travel. If you're using a car, it has to be half capacity. It means that there must be 2 people in a car. There can't be 3. So how are you going to travel? So a person has to decide. So in terms of expenses and in terms when you have to put out together a budget and ask for money, I would imagine that you'll have to say, instead of saying, okay, we're going to be using one mode of transport to travel, we're going to be using 2 if it's a small car. If it's a Kumbi, you know that you cannot put 15 people all together. They all have to observe and wear masks and all of that. But what is best at the moment is that we do realize that projects are dependent not just on the host of the project or the person doing the project, they're also dependent on the audiences. And we do realize that while we're saying people must move to digital platforms, if people are able to adapt and do live streaming shows, we realize that there might be an issue of incapacity when it comes to audiences not being excluded by that issue, to say, I can't become part of that project because I don't have enough data, I can't connect, I can't be part of that program. So there will be a need to travel physically, but where it can be avoided, we encourage people to say during this time, it will be very I think it would be ideal to have more projects doing the things digitally where it's happening.
Lovely. Thanks. Thank you very much, Lindy. We've seen some questions come through about film. Let's make it very clear, because there's quite a few of those around film. We do not fund film. If you require funding for film, please approach our sister organization, the National Film and Video Foundation. Then we have a question from Mr. Bomela, who's asking about CVs. He says, we talk about CVs as though we are applying for a job, or do you need a coordinator, music profile, or co-founder, music biography? Julie, do you want to weigh in on the kinds of biographies or CVs that we are looking for from?
Yes. We're using CVs as a generic term, but actually biographies are more important. We want them to be succinct. They need to showcase your proficiency in the art form that you're doing. We don't necessarily are going to be looking as if you are applying for a job, but looking at your skills, your professional skills in terms of the project that you will be implementing. That is why we want to see who you are. Unfortunately, we do not know everyone, so it is important that your biography or your CV speaks for itself, because we cannot assume that you can implement the work without us seeing your artistic skills, your proficiency in implementing. So it's quite important that you present us with that information.
Thank you very much, Julie. We have another question. I don't know between Julie, Lindy, or Smangele who would like to take this one. The question is from Sihle Hlophe. It's asking, do you fund work readiness programs? Julie, would you like, Lindy? Yeah.
Can I attempt to answer? I don't know if Sipho can elaborate on work readiness programs.
Sorry, Lindy, your audio is not very clear. You're breaking up. Maybe we can ask. Maybe we can ask.
Readiness programs means training in terms of vocational training. Yes, we do support.
Okay, I seem to think, well, we have lost Lindy. We can't hear Lindy. Julie, can I ask you to respond to that?
Okay, I will. We just need to be quite specific and have a clear understanding what Sihle means by work readiness programs. I'm thinking where I'm sitting now with perhaps projects that need development, if I can put it that way, product development and so forth. Yes, we do. I've seen a lot of examples coming through the craft discipline. So we actually would love to see projects, artistic programs, if I can put it that way, advancing to an excellent level. We have seen examples of projects where they're applying and they're not yet fully developed so that they can be consumed at the market. So if one is specific and say they're asking for funding for work to be improved for product development, yes, we do support that, because we want to see people moving from a lower phase to an excellent level.
Thank you very much, Julie. We've got Sihle Hlophe unmuted. Sihle, do you want to elaborate on your question? Have we fully responded to your question?
Not fully. So basically, what the program that I'm referring to is for unemployed graduates and final year graduates that are being prepared for the work market, like CV preparation, how to get the jobs, how to behave when they have the jobs, the soft skills and the hard skills as artists. But a lot of them, when they get the employment opportunities, they can't retain them because they're not taught about work readiness, because we don't have that sort of those robust programs like they do in banking and other sectors, so that they can actually retain those employment opportunities.
Thank you, Sihle. Julie, did you get that?
Yes, I did. Unfortunately, we don't do that at this stage, but you may find that in terms, it's actually a capacity building program. you may find that institutions that offer training do have professional development within their curriculum. So in that case, we would be supporting such institutions as part of the capacity building project that we will be funding. It's not only work readiness, some even include entrepreneurial development. So that will be supported if an institution is applying directly to us to support their participants in that respect.
Thank you very much, Julie. Our next question is from Musa Hlajwayo. I'm going to unmute you, Musa. Just ask your question again, or do you want me to read your question out for you?
Hi, no, sorry, I can actually just ask it myself. The question is more around, possibilities of obviously adhering to the regulations in terms of, for instance, let's just make an example. Suppose one decides to put together a project that is going to have 2 phases as per case in the performing arts, a research into rehearsal and building up into a performance. Rehearsals are going to be done separately, individually else or wherever else, but the final presentation is going to be done during such a time that we hope that we will be done with the regulations of COVID-19. So are we considerate of the fact that some projects might actually want to do their final presentations next year in March, May, or whenever, during a time that we hope that we will not be restricted by these regulations? And how do we work with that?
Musa, I'll answer part of that question for you very quickly, and I'll just ask Lindy Julie to weigh in. We cannot accept proposals in the hope that things are going to be better next year. The assumption is that COVID is going to be with us probably for 18 to 24 months. In this current call, if it is not COVID-19 compliant from beginning to end, it cannot be accepted as a COVID-19 compliant proposal. Because we don't know where we're going to be next year. We could be in a worse off situation than what we are in currently. But I'll just ask you, Julie, just to add to that, if I'm correct.
Okay, you are quite correct. When we are funding with the hope that we'll implement the project somewhere in March or April or May, then it goes beyond our financial year end. Interestingly, what we'd like to see is the project happening and being implemented within this financial year. Because on the other hand, on our side, in terms of compliance with Treasury as well, we need to distribute the funding. We need to disburse the funding fully. We do not want to be holding any other surpluses. The country is in dire need of funding. So ultimately, our budget could just be cut because we have not expended everything that we have. So it's quite important, like Eugene has mentioned, that from start to finish, you are considerate of the current reality that we are facing and implement within those protocols, everything from A to Z.
Thank you very much, Julie. Musa, are you covered?
Partly, but I'm just hoping that we can then clarify the issue regarding the dates, as Julie has just mentioned, just for us to be clear.
Okay,
so
perfect, Musa.
What would be the date?
Mm-hmm. Sorry, Musa, continue.
So what would be the dates that we are looking at? Otherwise, the larger part of the question is clearly answered, but I'm just asking for clarification regarding the dates.
Okay. Our financial year ends in March 31st. So we understand that the project has to be implemented within that time frame. You may find that you still need to report or produce your financial statements around April, May, that we can work with, but the implementation itself, because we want projects to be concluded by then.
Thank you very much, Julie. I'd just like to say, Musa, if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to email us, and then we can respond to you more fully. Our next comment, it seems, or question, is from Gavin, and I'm just going to read it out. I think I get what he's asking, or maybe not. So small local site-specific productions, I'm assuming, is allowed, providing it follows the rules, socially distanced and PPE one-on-one performance. So quite an opportunity for, well, I've just lost that message now. So another one came through and that just went down. But I think what he's saying is if you are following the rules, then you can do one-on-one performances or small performances where social distancing can be observed. Yes, that's going to be my short answer to that question. Julie, can you just indicate maybe with a yes as well, or a no? Maybe
yes to Gavin, yes.
Yeah, so yes, Gavin, as long as it meets COVID-19 rules. Then we have another one from Gavin. Sorry, actually, before I move on, do you want to elaborate on that? Is there anything else? Are you satisfied? Can we move?
If I can just add a bit, it's quite important that in the application, this sort of explanation is evident to say you're going to be doing a site-specific, you'll have one-on-one, and obviously you will observe social distancing protocols, the use of protective equipment and so forth. So it's important that it comes out. We don't want to assume. It has to be self-explanatory.
Are we good with that, Gavin? Maybe if you could give us a thumbs up. Okay. Let me unmute Gavin. Gavin, are you happy? Okay, thumbs up from Gavin. Thank you very much, Gavin. We'll move on then to the next question, which is from...
Eugene, please let Lindy in. She got disconnected.
Oh, okay, sure. Okay, I've just let everyone in. Then we have Disamelo, who's asking if it's small numbers of people who are traveling, can they still travel? So she says, or he says, I'm in Gauteng and looking at a project that may cover areas that are more mostly disadvantaged. I understand that traveling is not allowed. And would it also be affected if only 3 people are traveling? Considering social 19 compliance, if the people have travel permits. I think what they're asking here, Julie, is if it's just 3 people who are traveling, they've got permits, can they travel around the country?
I would say yes, just that I'm not too sure if the interprovincial traveling has been lifted completely. But I mean, if she's working within the Gauteng region, of course that would be permitted. Because I think I saw a question on the chat. She's looking at working in disadvantaged communities, and we really would like to see those outreach programs happening. So I think 3 people can be allowed to travel to those areas. And of course, they would need to have permits as well.
Yeah, and as long as it's within the province. So interprovincial is still not allowed. So the next one is from Jana. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Will no physical exhibitions be funded? What about if there is a COVID-19 compliant physical exhibition that has strong digital focus? That sounds like something that can be funded.
Yes.
Maybe a quick yes or a no. I think
yes. That's
perfect.
Yes.
And then from Moonlit, is a showcase a requirement for what constitutes a project? Asking with regards to strategic and capacity building initiatives that include job creation, training, education programs through the arts. I'm not quite getting the question. Can we allow Moonlit to come on, unmute, and just ask your question? I'm not quite understanding what the question is.
Hi there.
Oh, there we go. Hi.
Hi.
So, hi, I'm Zeno, by the way. My question is just, does the project have to include some kind of showcase? For example, like in theater, it would be a performance, you know. I'm asking with regards to projects that the focus is more on online digital teaching platforms, creating jobs for people in the arts and that kind of thing.
Thank you very much, Julie. Do you want to take that for us?
Yes, the quick answer is yes. Online training, if I got the question correctly, it is allowed because you need to reimagine your audience. There are instances where you can have a group in a particular class, so you might have to look at other ways of presenting your work digitally. And the advantage of that is that it's going to reach a lot more people and have more greater impact by reaching more people. Yes, that's the answer.
Okay, thank you very much. I seem to think we have gone through all the questions on the chat. Maybe I can just take 3 more questions, and then we are going to allow Julie, Lindy, and Smangela to respond to those. If you would like to ask a question that you have, okay, I've just seen, okay, if you'd like to ask a question that you've not put onto the chat, now's the time, just raise your hand. I'm going to go through the screen and see if there's anybody who would like to answer, to ask a question live. I'm on page 1. I see that there are no hands lifted. So if you go to the reactions at the bottom, Musa, sorry, we've if there's nobody else who's asking a question, Musa, I will definitely take a question from you. But if we can give others just an opportunity to also ask, otherwise we can come back to you. So I see there's Bongani Kumalo who's raised a hand who would like to ask a question. I'm going on to page 2. I see that there's no hand raised on page 2. So for now, we have Bongani with the question. And then Musa, I will also take your question. So we'll start with Bongani. Bongani, I will unmute you. And then you can respond, or you can just unmute yourself. I'm trying to unmute you here. It's not allowing you to. So if you could just unmute yourself, then you can ask your question. And after you've asked your question, Musa, you can ask your question, and then Lindy, Julie, or Smangela can take both. Over to you, Bongani. Hi, Bongani. Bongani, you can ask your question. Okay, as Bongani is not asking a question, we're going to take Musa, and then we're going to take Deboho Madlala after Musa. So we'll take Musa first, and then we'll move on to Deboho.
Thank you, Jean. I'm not really sure if it's a question or a comment, so just allow me just to kind of throw it out. Looking at the fact that reimagining our audiences largely involves, you know, cross-pollinating between art forms in terms of, if I may make an example with myself, you know, dance theater, obviously then having to collaborate with audiovisual. I'm wondering if in assessing our budgets, we are going to be considerate of the fact that not only am I now going to be presenting a project that falls within dance theater, but somewhere, somehow, it's going to be this interdisciplinary thing that tries to negotiate a relationship with audiovisual. And I'm also then wondering if we are going to be lenient towards the fact that even wording it is going to be a challenge, because I'm not necessarily going to be employing audiovisual people, but I want to collaborate with them. And the two of us are still going to try and find words in terms of how to word it for the NAC to understand, and also for the budget to look like it's clear and understandable and considerable in terms of how things work. So it's not so much a question, but rather a plea that, you know, can we please maybe consider that in terms of, you know, we are all kind of learning new ways of doing things, new ways of building relationships, new ways of reaching across audiences, and therefore challenges also in terms of putting it on paper, putting numbers that are going to reflect as credible and convincing, but also at the same time, we want to make it work. We are together in it, but somewhere, somehow, we need to learn, we need to fall, we need to get up, etc. So please, can we be considerate towards that as well?
Noted, noted, Musa. Thank you very much. We're going to take a question from Deboho, and then we're going to take another question from Mr. Bomela. Simangele, we'd like to hear from you, so maybe you can take the next questions that are coming up. Is that good, Simangele? So let's start with Deboho. Are you good, Simangele, to take the next questions?
Yeah.
Lovely. Thanks, Simang.
Yes.
Okay, so Deboho, you are up, and then after that, we'll take Mr. Bomela.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, thanks.
I'd firstly like to confirm something that I've seen on the comments saying NAC does not fund competitions and awards. I just like to confirm that first. And then
Correct.
secondly, that's how it is. They don't fund competitions and awards. Okay, no problem.
Yes.
I would like to, my second question, you see, with regards to newly registered organizations, they actually have a good track record, but then during their time of implementations, they were not registered. So they currently registered. So unfortunately, due to COVID-19, they were unable to gather the documents such as maybe tax clearance and stuff. They only have maybe the certificates from the NPO registrar of offices. So I want to know what measures put in place in order to accommodate such things, because the SARS branch has been closed and we were unable to collect the tax clearances. Thank you very much.
Okay, Deborah, to answer that one, you have to comply. It's a must administratively. So if you don't have any of the documents, it's a decline. So the advice that I can give it to you is that one person is allowed to apply working with the group, but then it's going to depend on your agreement rather than taking chances and apply as an organization while you don't have all the compliance documents. I don't know whether that is clear.
Yeah, it's very clear. So it means I can apply in my individual capacity, but then on behalf of the organization.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes, meaning all the documents will be in your name, the person that is applying.
Wonderful.
But then if you want to apply as an organization, you have to comply fully administratively, as well as if you agree as a group that one person is going to apply, but you'll be working together, which that it has nothing to do with an NAC. You have to agree as a group. Then one person amongst you who have all the compliance documents can apply.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Deboho. We are now going to take Mr. Bomela, and then I'm going to go to the group chat. But before we take Mr. Bomela, I just want to say we are now at 12 o'clock. I'm enjoying the discussions. Julie, Simangele, Lindy,
Yes.
Are you okay for us to continue maybe for another 15
minutes? Yes, I'm okay. And I would like to respond to Musa on the issue of interdisciplinary work. May I go ahead?
Please, Julie, and then after you will take Mr. Bomela.
As he put it, he says cross-pollination, working across disciplines. This is very exciting work, very innovative. We are looking at it, actually. The reason why we moved away from the discipline-based approach is because we realized that our disciplines, the way they were configured, actually kind of narrows the concept, for instance, of dance. It can be dance theater, it can be physical theater. You can have poets, as part of your presentation. So we're battling with shifting applications around, whether this is literature or theater or dance. And one of the reasons is that one of the reasons we introduced programs, because we recognize that the artists themselves have moved a long way from within the boundaries of each and every discipline. And we really are encouraged and interested in such work, because clearly there has been, how can I put it, advancement. Artists have gone beyond what we're doing administratively. So it didn't make sense to still continue to cage applicants or applications within the boundaries of each and every discipline. So interdisciplinary work, multidisciplinary work is totally supported and encouraged. Thank you.
Okay, just thank you very much, Julie, for that. Just before we go to Mr. Bomela, there's a question on can we submit and unsubmit applications that has come through from Tabile. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Julie, do you want to explain that we also have our own Tabisile from our IT section who understands this very well? Julie, you can take it. Perhaps we can ask Tabi to answer as well.
Okay.
But the short.
Yes. Sure. Because we've been reviewing applications since we opened applications in February this year, we have realized that there are some applications that are not COVID compliant and therefore would not be supported. So with the extension of the call, the main reason was to allow applications or applicants to revise their applications according to the new protocol. So we have included a feature on the GMS to unsubmit applications to be revised and then resubmit. So there's an opportunity to open access to everyone to ensure that they apply within the prescripts or the criteria that we're using currently. We however have a plea because we don't want an avalanche of applications coming in on the 19th.
Yeah.
Because we're currently reviewing applications as they come in. Our plea is that those that are unsubmitting and revising to try and resubmit by the 5th of June. Please.
I just want to add to what Julie is saying for the benefit of everybody else. Those who had submitted applications that were not COVID-19 compliant, we have since sent you reject letters to let you know that your application has been rejected because it is not COVID-19 compliant. And we ask you to resubmit an application that is COVID-19 compliant. And as Julie has just said, by the 5th of June, because obviously you've had time, you've already submitted. It's a matter of readjusting. And as Julie says, on the 19th, we would prefer not to have an avalanche of proposals coming through or new applications coming through. So if you can please rework your applications, resubmit by the 5th of June so that we can assess those quickly. Okay, now we are going to move on to Mr. Bomela. He had raised his hand earlier. Mr. Bomela, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. If you could
Hello?
just speak up a little bit. You are a bit soft. If you can just speak up and then, yes, you can continue, please. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, ma'am. My name is Mutu Pomela from Alwa North, Eastern Cape, Jokabi District. I'm a little bit confused about this thing of not funding maybe competitions or awards, because I was already in the process of applying for COVID-19 online music awards. I'm worried about the answer that I received now, because in the main Department of Arts and Culture from the minister, they do support national music award, which is hip hop awards in national. Those guys who are hosting those awards, they already get funding from the Department of Arts and Culture. But I'm confused now why maybe the National Arts Council don't support the competitions or awards. My question is, since my application is in process of this funding, since you've told me that you don't fund competitions and awards, so I must start over my application, or I must just change the few things in my application because the heading of my application is COVID-19 Online Joe Kaibe Music Awards. And now, when I go through to the online application, I don't see any option of changing the main name, because I have 3 projects.
We have lost you.
I want to hold.
We have lost you, Mr. Bomela. But I think we are getting the gist of the question that you
Hello?
are. Hi, Mr. Bomela. We are losing you. Can you wrap up your question, please?
Do you hear me now?
Wrap up your question.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. My question is, since you've told us that you don't fund competitions or awards. Now, according to my applications, is a COVID-19 Online Joe Kaibe Music Awards.
Okay,
So
thank you,
my
Mr.
question is,
Bomela. We've got your question. We've got your question. Thanks, Mr.
Okay.
Bomela. We've got
Thank
your
you, ma'am.
question. Julie or Smangele?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Julie, there we go.
Let me start, and maybe Smangele can weigh in as well. Obviously, the reason why we do not support, competitions and awards is that we will be funding an award ceremony. And in as much as it is some kind of recognition of work that has been done, I've seen the kind of support that we've given to such initiatives where they have a development element, where there is a training component, development element to enhance the work of the people that will be competing and showcasing their work at the end, and therefore ending up with some sort of an award. We will fund the artistic part of it and not necessarily the ceremony itself. The budgets are usually quite exorbitant and would require multiple sources of funding. So we want to see the development itself of the participants, not them just being placed at a competitive level without an enhancement of their skills, which then leads to recognition of the work that they have done. I think that is actually one of the reasons. The Department of Arts and Culture obviously supports. They give quite substantive funding, unlike the National Arts Council. Smangele, do you want to weigh in?
Okay, what I can add is that you can apply only maybe for the artistic element at the NAC. So you have to be able to separate the two. And then for the other part, which is the competition part, and then the awarding, and also the compensation, because I saw that you also want to give out some monies, then you can source other funding for that. So when the NAC is talking about the partnership, those are the kind of things that we are talking about, that the NAC can't fund the entire budget, and the NAC has the right to have the limits, not to choose what to fund according to its mandate. So I will say, go through your program as a whole and select apply for only what is relevant to the NAC. And then the other part, source other funding that can fund the other element. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Smangele. We have a few other questions. Some we are trying to respond to on the chat as they are coming through. I'm just going to read through a few and answer them for everybody else's benefit. Quotations, do we require quotations of the artists and facilitators that we are going to be using for the COVID-19 online festival? Yes, please submit quotations, all quotations that you can submit to us are always helpful in us trying to establish what your budget is for the program that you're going to be running. The next one is, do you fund 7 to 10 days projects that consist of capacity building and live performances with daily live performance? The short answer to that is yes, and I think my colleagues have also responded to that as well on the chat. There's another one that says, is a showcase a requirement for what constitutes a project? Yes. So I'll take that part yes first. Asking with regards to strategic and capacity building initiatives that include job creation, training, education programs through the arts. The answer to that is yes. Julie, are we in agreement?
Yes, yes. We
Right?
are in agreement, correct.
And what else do we have? My application is about online music awards. We've responded to that. Okay, I think we have responded to most of the online questions. I just want to say, if you do have any more questions, please feel free to email us. Let me give you my email address. You can email me at eugene@nac.org.za. There's also the info email address that is on our website. Please send your questions to that email address. Those emails do come through to us. They are filtered through to the relevant people within the organization to be able to respond to your questions. Julie, are you okay? We're at 16 minutes past 12, so we're a bit over our time. What do you suggest? Mangela, I see you smiling. What are we deciding to do? This is quite exciting, I think, but at least it is for me. I hope it is for everybody else.
Yeah.
Do we want to take maybe?
I mean, it certainly is. If it's 16 minutes, we can wrap up and finish at 20 past. So another 4 minutes or so.
Okay.
And also just to encourage people that we're going to have other similar sessions so they can log in. But as you've mentioned, if they can begin to email any questions, any queries that they have, because we don't have all the time in the world. But we really appreciate them joining us.
We are so grateful that you could join us. We just wanted to be present and available to all of you because we know it's tough times. It's difficult to just walk into the office or to pick up the phone and call because obviously we're not in the office. So we thought this would be a great platform to be able to engage with you. And as Julie has said, we're going to have more sessions like this. So as you already know, we have another session that's scheduled for 11 o'clock on Monday. And in that session, what we want to look at is the actual application form. So we want to go through the application form with you. Ms. Mangele Hlope is going to be presenting that for us on Monday. And you can ask, we can then go through the application form together. We can ask questions as we go through the application form. We can also then maybe experience, like you do, some of the challenges maybe that you have when you are submitting, when you're completing the application form and uploading documents, so that we can all experience it together, get to see what some of the challenges are, so that we can better service you and service your needs and understand what some of the challenges are, because obviously we're not the applicants. We receive the application forms, but we don't always understand what the challenges are. So before we wrap up, then we already are on 18 minutes. So it means we actually left it 2 minutes, but maybe we can drag it out for another 4 minutes. I'm going to ask then for 2 last questions that have not been asked on the chat, that have not been asked by any other participant. If anyone has a question, we are going for a last round. If you go down to the bottom, there's the reactions. Just raise your hand. I see Peggy has a raised hand. If you can just hold on, Peggy, we note you. Is there anybody else who has a question? We have Peggy so far. Is there anybody else who would like to ask a question? Okay, so we're going to take Peggy. Peggy's then is going to be the last question that we take, and then we are going to call this a day. But I'll talk to you again just before we wrap up. So we'll just take Peggy's question, and then this will be the last question session we have. Thanks, Peggy.
Okay, thank you very much. My question is, can anyone hear me?
Yes, Peggy, I hear you well.
All right. Sure, my question was, do you fund for equipment? And if so, would I have to submit like quotations for such? Equipment, like let's say I'm going to do online training. So I will need a microphone, lights, and all that for the setup.
Okay. If I can take that, yes, we'll do. We normally wouldn't prior to the COVID, but in this era, we recognize that if we're saying people need to use digital platforms, they obviously need the tools to do that. So we will be considering those as well.
Peggy, you sufficiently answered?
Yes, thank you very much. So, oh, sorry, the second part of it was, would then I have to submit quotations?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, yes,
All right.
yes. It's quite important.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, before we wrap up, I just want to ask the NAC team if there's anyone who would like to make last comments from the NAC team. I'm going to start with you, Smangela. Are there any comments you'd like to make? Anything that you think we've left out that you'd like to just note for all our participants today? You're good. Thank you, Smangela. Lindy, I know that you've been in and out of the sessions. I don't see you on now, probably a network issue. But I don't see Lindy. Okay, I do see you there. Do you have any last comments? Anything you would like to note in the session?
The last comment I would like to make is that people should follow through by sending emails to relevant ADOs so that they can get the questions more clarified. So they are more than welcome to send us emails.
Lovely. Does okay, let me just give you some of the email addresses. Lindy, how do you think we handle this? Should we just give all the email addresses of all the ADOs now?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the email addresses for the NAC are simple. It's always the first name. Mine is LINDI, Lindy at NAC. For Tato, it would be THATO, Tato at NAC, Eugene at NAC, Simangela at NAC, Puleng at NAC, but it's .org.za, not .gov. But all of the emails are available on our website as well.
Fantastic, lovely. Thank you very much for that, Lindy. Any other comments, Julie? Do you want to do a last wrap up?
Yes, I do. Yes, I would definitely welcome the opportunity. My advice before I do closing comments is for people to try and apply now and not waste for the last minute. Because you've seen the date for the outcomes is quite close. We close on the 19th and want to release applications by the end of June. So we are reviewing applications now as we speak. So we actually appeal to people to continue submitting timelessly so that we can review and finish, adjudicate and finish and give results quite on time. Because if you have an avalanche, that might be quite difficult to meet our deadline of the outcomes at the end of June. My closing remarks is actually, this is the first online of its own kind that we've ever done as the National Arts Council. We have had similar sessions, but which were quite physical contact sessions in the various areas, in the various provinces. So this one is quite good. We're doing it at the comfort of our own homes, and we'll be able to reach more people. And I think this recording itself will be on our social media and website if people would like to go back and listen. And thank you so much for being with us. We learn from you. You also learn from us. And in that way, we will continue to offer you better services as you deserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie. That is a perfect wrap up. I can't do it better than that. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much to everyone. We have your comments. We'll go through them as well from the chat. We'll respond to you if need be. You are welcome to email us. Thank you so much, Andrew. We note that thumbs up. Thank you so much, Peggy. We note that Thank you very much to everyone. And we'll see some of you again on Monday. And just look out on our social media platforms for more sessions like this. Thank you very much, R. We see that clap. Thank you, Sihle. We see those comments. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon further. Thanks, Gavin. Thanks, Ivy. Thanks, Brenda. Thank you so much to everyone. And have yourselves all a wonderful afternoon. We can hear all the goodbyes now as you leave. I think I've unmuted all of you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Hi.
Well, come on.
Thank you.